Hi, everyone. Good morning from New York City. My name is Kelly Moran, and I am the Assistant Director of International Admission here at Pace University. It's a pleasure to see so many familiar names this morning, so we're excited to talk to you. Before we get started, I'm going to give an opportunity for my colleague, Carly, to introduce herself as well. She'll be joining us for the presentation today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carly Corbett-Frank. I am the Global Pathways Coordinator and just International Admissions Counselor. So excited to see so many familiar names and give you guys some information.
Thank you, Carly. So Carly's going to jump off for a little bit and join us when we get to the end of the presentation for our Form I20 documentation questions. But first things first, we're going to get started with the applicant dashboard and student checklist. I know that these are things that we've gotten a lot of questions about since decision day on May 1. So we're excited to give you a little bit more insight into what these items actually mean. So let's get started. Okay, so hopefully this page looks familiar to you. This is what you used to view your decision letter so many months ago. This is also the homepage for your student applicant dashboard. So in addition to the decision letter that you see there, there are a couple of things we wanted to go over on this page directly. First thing is this section over here, watching this short video. So for any of you who haven't watched that video quite yet, I do encourage you to do so. In addition to this presentation that we're having right now, it is an excellent resource just to better understand what is expected of you and how to utilize this dashboard most effectively moving forward. Additionally, I wanted to highlight the payment due section. So for those of you who have already submitted both your enrollment deposit and your housing deposit, this section is likely not here anymore as you have completed that checklist item. For those of you who still have it awaiting, that just means that you haven't submitted the housing deposit. So if you are intending to submit your housing deposit, please do that soon. As a reminder, we have moved to a housing waitlist as of May 7th. So for any students who are looking to reside on campus, definitely submit that as soon as possible. If you are not planning to live on campus, but still see the housing deposit link there, don't worry, it's not something that you need to submit if you're not living on campus. It's just there as an option available to you should you change your mind in the future. Moving over, so just highlighting this tabs section here at the top, we're going to move over to the next step section. So throughout all of the applicant dashboard, you are able to click into next tabs. Next steps being the most important now that you have made your decision and submitted your enrollment deposit. Hopefully by now your checklist looks a little bit something like this. You've already joined PACEbound, you've accepted your PACE financial aid, and you've registered for orientation. When you do complete these items, they will start being marked with the green check mark and the received, as well as the date completed for each item. But anything that is still outstanding is going to be marked with that red X and the awaiting message there. The reason that we are focusing on accepting your financial aid and registering for orientation is because these are kind of sequential in terms of the way that they are listed out to you. So you want to make sure that you're completing each item as it comes up. These two are the easiest to complete and the most important. So we're going to go over these a little bit more in detail. First up is accepting your financial aid. So on the screen before with the hyperlink for each checklist item, you are able to click into each hyperlink and get a little bit more insight as to what that item contains, step-by-step instructions on how to complete it. For the financial aid, when you do click into the website, you might notice that you are being asked to activate your MyPace portal if you haven't logged into it already. So this is something where you will need your Pace University username, and that is something that you can get in the My Info section. So this tab over here on your student dashboard. When you do click into My Info, the MyPace portal information is right there up at the top. So you are able to see your username and your university ID number straight away. These are things that I would get comfortable with because you're going to be asked for them quite a bit throughout your 4 years here at the university. If you are having any difficulty locating this information or any difficulty activating your MyPace portal, please just let us know and we'll give you some more insight as to how to go about that process. Next up is registering for orientation. So for those of you who have not yet registered or explored the dashboard a little bit, this orientation registration tab is where you'll be going to complete that item. When you do click in, if you haven't yet signed up for orientation, this tab will show something like this. So the beginning to a survey, and it does go on for quite a bit. I do encourage you to take a minute and consider your options when filling out this survey, as these survey responses do go to our orientation and academic advising teams to make sure that an appropriate schedule is made for you for the upcoming term. So just make sure you're taking a minute and answering all of those questions to the best of your ability. Once you have registered for orientation, your screen will change a little bit and it'll look more something like this. With this, it'll tell you what session you are registered for, if maybe you registered and forgot to write it down. This is also something that will be sent to you via email, so you'll get a confirmation email and it'll be reflected on your portal. We do encourage you to make note of this because it is very important to attend orientation, not only for all of the PACE-specific application or PACE-specific information, but also for your academic schedule. So I know this is a big question that we've gotten recently. When am I going to get my class schedule? You will get your class schedule at orientation when you meet with your academic advisor. So this piece is particularly important. You want to get it done sooner rather than later so that your academic advisor is able to get started on that schedule for you. Up next is placement exams. So this has been another big point of question that we've gotten lately. The placement exams are very important in making your course schedule for the upcoming semester. I know when anyone sees the word test, they get very nervous and they think that it's going to be a pass-fail type of situation. It is not. So with this particular test, it is more so meant to gauge your level of experience with English and with math. So with that, you're not going to get a grade once you complete the test. It's not something that you should be looking for that grade in your email or on the page once you complete the exam. It's more so something that is sent to your academic advisor so that they're able to better place you in the appropriate course for your schedule. This is just to make sure that you are successful at Pace University. So again, don't be worried about it. Just take a quiet moment, submit your English and your math placement tests, and you are good to go for your academic schedule. Another thing I do want to highlight is some of you may be logging into your portal and see only the English placement test or only the math placement test. Maybe you have neither. So what that means is that you may have previous academic credit from either another institution or maybe an exam that you completed that's already reflected on your account. And with it already being reflected on your account, we no longer require the placement exam to place you in those subjects for the upcoming term. So if it's not there, don't worry about it. You've been evaluated and considered it waived. If it is there, please take it. We have reviewed each student carefully to make sure that we're asking the appropriate students to take that placement test. So if it is there, please complete it. Again, the earlier the better, as it does help academic advising with your schedule. Next up are the orientation modules. So the orientation modules include the orientation module itself, as well as the alcohol and cannabis modules. In a normal year, you would be here on campus for a 2-day orientation, and you would get a whole bunch of information during those 2 days. But given the transition to online learning, we have to get a little creative with making sure that you're still getting all of the same great information. And that's where the modules come in. These are things that you're able to complete online prior to coming to campus, and you're able to still get all of that great information, but not have to be on Zoom for 2 straight days. So that's kind of the compromise there. In terms of completing these modules, when you click into the hyperlink on the checklist, it'll give you more step-by-step instructions on how to log in, how to submit, everything like that. We do encourage you to review the instructions very closely because a lot of times students will think they've submitted, but they forgot to click the submit button. So just make sure you're reading very carefully when you are going through those modules and completing them as soon as possible. Next up is the final transcript. So for your final transcript, this applies to both high school students and transfer students that are coming to Pace University. All students do need to submit a final high school transcript submitted officially. Now, what does that mean? So submitted officially means that it is coming directly from your school official at your previous institution to us here at Pace. Now, most commonly, students will try and go for the electronic submission, which we definitely encourage given the residual mailing delays due to COVID. But when you are submitting something electronically, it does have to come from a school-sponsored email address. So for example, at pace.edu, okay. At gmail.com, not okay. So when you are having your school official submit that, just make sure they are using their school email. Another thing to keep in mind is that if you are using the physical mailing option, make sure that it is coming from their team directly to us. If they have a policy in place where they need to email or send it to you, the student, and you need to bring it to us, just don't open the envelope. Once a student opens the email or opens the envelope, it is considered unofficial. So just to better save your time, make sure that it is closed or coming directly from one school to the next. For transfer students, not only do you need to submit your high school transcript, you also need to submit your final university transcript. So if you've been taking classes for this spring semester, just make sure that you are waiting to request that transcript until after your grades have posted. Again, we do encourage an electronic submission whenever possible, so just keep that in mind. One other thing to keep in mind is that, again, anything that the student does submit is considered unofficial and will not remove the hold. So if you're seeing that this is still awaiting and you know that you've sent it a couple of times, keeping in mind you sending it is not going to satisfy the hold. It does have to come from a school representative. The final thing here is our PACE ID card photo. So this is particularly important because your physical ID card is what is used to access campus buildings, to access your residence hall, your meal plan, different events on campus, and so on and so forth. Can also be used for great student discounts in the surrounding area at some of our partner restaurants and stores down here in Lower Manhattan. When you are submitting your photo, just make sure that you are reviewing all of the instructions at the hyperlinked website, mainly that you are submitting a color photo with a full headshot with a white background, and making sure that there is no sunglasses, hats, other obstructions to the photo. So for example, I'm wearing glasses right now, that is okay, but if I was wearing dark sunglasses, not okay. We want to be able to see your pretty faces on your ID card photo. When your checklist is complete, all of the red X's are going to go to green checks, and all of the dates will be submitted or will be included with the dates that you submitted each individual item. Something to keep in mind is this little disclaimer along the bottom. Please allow 2 to 3 business days for items to be reflected on your checklist. Not all of these items will update instantaneously. So if you're submitting something and then refreshing your student dashboard, it won't be updated quite yet. Please again, allow the 2 to 3 business days just to make sure that everything is there. If after say a week or so, the item still isn't updated, just check back in with us at the INTL ADM email address, and you'll be able to get a little bit more information about what you need to do to finally complete that item. And then our other items to keep in mind before we jump into I-20 documentation and the F1 student visa. So in terms of your student checklist, those are all of the items that we here in admissions are focused on completing to get you a little bit closer to that point of enrollment. But of course, there are other items from our other offices here at PACE that you've been looking forward to for your upcoming summer. Outside of this, most commonly are our housing questions, our schedule questions, and our bill questions. So for those of you living on campus, once you've submitted your housing deposit, the Office of Residential Life and Housing will be following up directly with you to fill out your My Housing application. Once that is complete, placements will be coming out over the summer. Typically, this is in July, so don't worry if you haven't gotten your placement quite yet. For any of you who have already selected your roommate, maybe you've met them during the PACE-Bound Online or at one of the online events, or you know them from your home school, whatever the case may be, keep in mind that both of you do have to mutually request each other as a roommate. So if I request Carly as a roommate, but she doesn't request me, we're not going to get paired as roommates. So it does have to be both of you to secure that room placement. And again, that will be coming out later over the summer. Next up is student schedules. So as I mentioned with the placement exams, academic advising works to create all student schedules for our incoming students. This is because they're looking at all of your preferences from the orientation registration questionnaire, as well as any credits that you've completed, as well as any classes that you may need to complete your degree. So they're looking at the big picture and making sure that you are being signed up for any classes that you might need in order to graduate, really from the first point that you're coming to school. They are great about working with students to make sure that the class preferences fit what they're looking for, but ultimately they are making sure that, again, you're satisfying all the requirements for your degree pretty early on. This is something that you will get during academic orientation. So if you're going on and you see that you can register yourself, please don't. If you do happen to register yourself for classes early, you will be dropped from those schedules when academic advising gets to make yours. Once they make your schedule and they provide it to you, you're able to meet with them at orientation to make any edits that you may see fit to make for the upcoming semester. So just keep that in mind, hold off till orientation. Your schedule will be made, we promise. The final thing is with our Office of Student Accounts and the student bill. This is something that is going to be issued to you in early June. So make sure that you are keeping an eye on both your PACE student email and your personal email. As for all three of these offices, everyone will be communicating with you largely via email for the upcoming summer. For your student bill, keeping in mind that all bills must be paid by August 1 to prevent any late fees. So you're going to want to make sure that, again, you're keeping an eye on your email and making sure you know when that comes out. Once the bill comes out, your payment plan information will also come out. So if that is something that you've been looking at, waiting for the website to update, keep in mind once you get your bill, the payment plan information will also be included. So you're able to review both of those together. One other big thing to note for your student bill is going back to accepting your financial aid. The reason we started with that is because if you have not accepted your financial aid by the time bills come out, it will not be reflected on your student bill. So it might look a little bit larger than what you might have been expecting. That's why it's very, very important. Make sure you're starting with the top of the checklist and accept your financial aid as soon as possible. So if you're thinking, oh no, I haven't done that, make sure you do that when we hang up here today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carly to talk a little bit about I-20 documentation for the F1 student visa. Take it away.
Thanks, Kelly. So I'm here to give you guys a brief overview about I-20 documentation for F1 visas. So we're just gonna quickly go over passports, financial affidavits, bank statements, and transfer recommendation forms. So first, just some important terminology for you guys to know that you might be hearing from myself or Kelly or other individuals who are in the process, who are helping you process your I-20. First is SEVIS, which is the Student and Exchange Visitor Information System. This is pretty much just an online database used to maintain information on F1 students, and your I-20 is issued and maintained through this database. Any changes that might happen regarding you or your program, such as if you have a name change, a major degree level or program end date change, this will be reported through SEVIS. And then a DSO, which is a designated school official, which a designated school official is the one that would issue, update, or sign an I-20 or make any changes to your SEVIS record. Kelly and I are both DSOs, so prior to the start of the semester, if you have any questions or changes that you need made to your I-20, you would reach out to us. But once the semester starts, our colleagues over in the International Student Scholars and Office, the DSOs in that office would help you maintain any changes to your I-20. So first up, for necessary documents, you will need to send a screenshot of your passport. We need the first page and then the last page, just so we're able to correctly fill out the information on your I-20. Your passport must be valid at all times. So this means that it cannot expire while you are in the US. If it is close to being expired, you must renew your passport within 6 months of the expiration date. Next up, you are also required to submit a bank statement. So a bank statement has to be dated within 6 months prior to the start of term, and it has to show the owner's name and a current balance covering the costs for 1 academic year. As of right now, bank statements are within that 6-month mark. So if you are submitting a bank statement from here on, it should meet that date requirement. And it can be a letter from the bank on bank letterhead, and it has to show the date, account number, account holder's name, and the amount. Next up is the financial affidavit, which is a document that we will provide. If you have received your email asking for your documents, you should see a hyperlink with a PDF to download this. And this document lists tuition and fees for 1 academic year. So this is what that financial affidavit will look like. As you can see, it kind of lists out the tuition fees, room and board fees, and then other specified costs, and shows that total at the bottom. If you have received any scholarship, you would put that amount beneath the total, and then you would subtract that scholarship and put that in the bottom part of the financial affidavit. This is the amount that you would need to show in your bank statement that you provide. So right there, where that arrow is pointing, that is where you would put the amount that you are required to show in your bank statement. Next, you will need to sign this document. So we do require students to sign right where it says student signature, where that little arrow is pointing. Something to note is that there are two lines. One says current address and the other says permanent foreign address. So if you are currently living somewhere that is not your address in your home country, you would fill out that information. Typically, that's students who are currently in the US, as we need a US address if you are on a F1 visa given by a different school. And then you would also need to provide your permanent foreign address, just as this is a requirement by CVIS to fill out your I-20. If the bank account is in somebody else's name, so if you have a financial sponsor, they will need to fill out the second portion of the financial affidavit and sign the document as well, right where that arrow is pointing. The name on the bank statement must match the name on the financial affidavit. If it does not, we will most likely send you an email letting you know that we would need a new financial affidavit with the correct signature. The print name must be in English, just so we're able to match the documents together. And although there are 3 lines for sponsors, you do not need 3 sponsors. If you have one individual is helping you fund your education, they are the only ones that need to sign, but you are able to have more than one sponsor. So any bank statements provided must match the names and signatures on the second page of the financial affidavit. And then last, we have the transfer recommendation form. So this is really only important if you are currently in the US studying on a F1 visa. On this document, you will need to fill out and complete the top portion of the document highlighted. And then the DSO of your current school will be required to fill out the bottom part of the transfer recommendation form. Something to note is that they will need a campus code in order to transfer your CVIS ID to PACE. So when you are letting the DSO at your current school know that you would like to transfer your CVIS ID, please be mindful of what campus you've applied to and been accepted at. These are 2 different codes, and it just helps the process go a little bit more smoothly if your CVIS ID is transferred to the correct campus. These 2 campus codes are listed below, but if you need that again, you are able to email us and we will provide that code for you. And that's it for the presentation. So at this time, hey Kelly, if anybody has any questions, we are here to answer them.
One thing I did want to go over, just because we did get that question in the chat already, is what happens if your official documents coming from your school are in a language other than English? Great question. If your school is unable to provide a translated copy for you directly, you will need to go to an official translation agency in order to have that completed and sent to us. Same rules apply. It has to come from a translation official to an official here at the university. So you need to make sure that you're submitting that officially in order to, again, satisfy that requirement. If you have already completed this requirement for a previous university, please, again, just keep in mind, it can't come directly from you, the student. It has to come from the translation agency. So if you're able to have them resend that document to another institution, just have them send it over to us and we're able to move forward with that.
So I see a question, what is the last date to request for an I-20? We don't have a deadline necessarily for students to submit their documents for the semester, but due to long wait times for visa appointments, we usually suggest that students get that to us as soon as possible. You know, it is May, so the semester does start in 3 months, and there are, you know, different embassy closures and stuff, and longer wait times than usual. So as soon as you are able to receive those documents, I would suggest submitting them so that we are able to issue your I-20 and you are able to take your CVIS ID and make that visa appointment.
Okay, the next question is about math and placement exams. What happens if I don't see them on my checklist? So as I mentioned earlier, we look at each individual student to determine whether or not that placement exam is going to be a requirement based on any previous credit that you may have already completed. So if you are coming from another institution, then you may already have transfer credit that kind of waives that exam for you. So it won't be reflected on your checklist. If you are kind of scratching your head and maybe you don't have undergraduate credit from another institution and you still don't see the exam, feel free to just send us an email to that INTL ADM account and we'll be able to check in for you, just double check. The next question is about COVID rules and getting the vaccine. So I know this is an email that you guys probably got, and maybe there was a little bit of nervousness about it given vaccination availability in your home country. So we are requiring all students to have the vaccine to come to campus for this fall semester. That said, it is a still relatively new announcement. I think it only was announced about 2 weeks or so ago. So we're not really sure of all of the ins and outs specifically, you know, what happens if a student is unable to get their vaccine in the home country and so on and so forth. So as we know more, you will know more. And I know that's not a very satisfying answer, but all of our information about the vaccine and all of the frequently asked questions that we currently have answers to are available on the website. If you haven't been to the COVID hub on the PACE website, I very much so recommend it. It goes over all of the safety precautions that we have in place for the PACE community. And again, the frequently asked questions that we have been able to answer thus far about that vaccination announcement.
So I have been seeing some questions about if you're unable to get your visa in time for the start of classes. As of right now, you know, we are planning to be in person for fall, but we are mindful that some of our international students, it might be harder to get to the US to start those in-person classes. So we will be offering some online courses for students. You are also able to defer if online classes are not for you. You can defer for up to 1 year, and that might be better for you if you would like to start your classes in person. We are also allowing students to arrive, and Kelly, please correct me if this has changed, 2 weeks after the start of the semester, as long as you are in contact with your professors and you get approval from them. So if you have a visa appointment that is a bit later than you would like and you're going to arrive in the US after the start of term, please be in contact with your professors and just let them know, because they should be flexible with some of our students who might have late arrivals, but you would also be missing class. So you would just need approval from them.
Something else to keep in mind, just going off of what Carly said, is that 2 weeks after the start of the semester, that is a hard deadline. So if your visa appointment is in October, your visa appointment is in October. You'll either be deferring for the spring 2022 term, or you'll be participating online for the fall 2021 term. Unfortunately, after 2 weeks into the semester, you are not able to enter the country, even if you are currently taking classes. You have to have an in-person class in order to be eligible to travel to the US, and you have to be able to get in during that timeline. Otherwise, it's the next semester. One other thing that we've been seeing is difficulties with the My Housing application. You're not alone. A couple of students have been experiencing this. In order just to help us help you, please send in a screenshot of what you are looking at. And just to cover all of our bases, make sure that you are trying the My Housing application in multiple browsers. A lot of times, for whatever reason, one browser will get stuck and then the other one will be able to go through. So try 2 browsers first and then send us a screenshot of what issue that you are working with. Okay. What happens if your final exams have been delayed due to COVID? It happens. It's been a crazy year. So if your final exams are delayed due to COVID, just keep in contact with us about that. You do have to submit a final high school transcript or proof of graduation in order to enroll here at the university. So if you won't have any sort of documentation indicating that you have completed high school by September 8th, that can be a bit of a problem. But again, we want to talk to you about it and just get a bit more information there. If you are able to get all of your documents in prior to September 8th, but maybe prior is September 7th and not May 15th, that's okay too. Again, just keep in contact with us so we're able to make note on your application.
I do see a question about scholarship. If you defer, so your scholarship won't be canceled, but depending on when you are deferring or how long you are deferring, it may change. So it may just be up for, different evaluation in terms of the money that you are receiving, but you would be notified of that on your decision letter. So that is a part of the deferral process, but it wouldn't be canceled altogether. Oh, also something to note, sorry, Kelly, is that if you are deferring, you must communicate with us that you are not attending another university or institution. So if you were, you would need to be reconsidered completely for your application, depending on the grades that you received at that institution prior to enrolling at PACE, and that might affect your scholarship as well.
So the next question is, what is the last day we can enter housing and join classes? Again, as Carly mentioned, it's going to be about 2 weeks into the start of the semester. I haven't looked at a calendar quite yet, but that's going to be around mid-September or so. We'll have that official date for you as it does get closer. Something I do want to encourage all students to do is just consider arriving a little bit early. We typically do have early move-in for housing, so that's something that they're going to communicate with you once you do get your assignment, how early you are able to move in. But just in general, COVID is kind of an ongoing situation, and we are doing quite well here in New York. We're reopening bit by bit. We're very excited, but I don't know what the quarantine rules and restrictions are going to be come the end of August, early September. So just keep that in mind as you are making your travel plans. You might want to leave a week cushion just to either explore the city or complete quarantine, whatever the season holds for us coming up to August.
So orientation is going to be online. You do need to attend 2 orientations as an international student. The first orientation is an orientation held by academics and involves all students in the university. And the second orientation is through the International Students and Scholars Office, and this will be held online August 19th. This orientation is very important to attend, as you must check in with that office regarding your I-20 and visa, and they'll go over the different requirements and regulations that you as an international student must uphold on that visa type.
So just to reiterate regarding the residence halls, again, early move-in is going to be available. It's always available every year, but how early move-in starts has not yet been decided. So that's something that's going to be communicated with you by the Office of Residential and Life and Housing. So again, just a big reminder, make sure that you are checking both your personal email and your PACE email throughout the upcoming summer, because there's going to be a lot of good information that is communicated to you by multiple offices. The other part of this question was what happens if you have graduated already and submitted your final official documents. If you've already submitted your official documents and you are seeing that final transcript indicator, just let us know and we'll take a look. A lot of times what might have happened is they didn't come in as official, so we may require a resubmission, but again, we'd be happy to double check for you, so just let us know.
If you're interested in double majoring, this is something that you will discuss with your academic advisor, as they will be able to kind of speak more into what courses you should take, as well as probably give you some sort of idea about what courses might be better to double major in, as there are different schools that have different core requirements. It may be easier to double major within your initial school, but your academic advisor would help you kind of navigate that.
So the next question is, if I'm not going to be living on campus, are there any deductions that should be made on the financial affidavit? Great question, but no. The only deductions that will be made to the financial affidavit are those scholarships provided by Pace University. So that first line that Carly went over. When we are looking at the financial affidavit and the estimated cost of attendance, I know it does say room and board and automatically that clicks to university housing, but that's not necessarily the case. So we're looking at room and board. So what housing costs would be if you're on campus, if you're off campus, it's kind of an all-encompassing estimate there. And that is, again, because that is the federal document. So we're looking at the cost of attendance all-inclusive, regardless of where you are living on campus. So you do have to show entire proof of funding, but again, keeping in mind that the financial affidavit is different than the student bill. So what you're seeing on the financial affidavit may be different than the bill itself, depending on things like if you are living on campus, if you already have health insurance, and so on and so forth.
So I do see a comment, do we need to register for the International Student Orientation? As of right now, I do not think that there is a live link available for that orientation, but eventually you will need to register for that, just in part to get the Zoom credentials, but registering is also going to help the ISS office make sure that you are all checked in and ready to go for the start of the semester.
So how and when do we get our potential credits as I have done the IB diploma or I have done the AP exams, whatever the case may be? So as these exams typically take place in May or June, these are things that may not be already included in your student portal. And so you still may be seeing the English or math placement exams. On that note, I would say still take the English or math placement exams. It's always better to just have taken it. And then if you have a transfer credit that waives that requirement later on, so be it. But this way you're at least kind of getting a jump on that schedule creation with academic advising. So definitely recommend that. But in terms of transfer credits, please just remember to have your scores submitted officially for the AP students through the College Board and for our IB students through the IB organization. Just make sure that they are sent to PACE because they do have to come in officially in order to receive that credit. As a reminder, any AP exam that you have received a 4 or 5 on is eligible for academic credit. And any IB exam done at the higher level that you've received a 4 or better for is also eligible for academic credit. These are done on a weekly basis. So within 3 to 5 business days, you'll be able to get your transfer credit evaluation once your scores have been submitted.
I see a question about if I want to enroll in minors, do I wait until I get in contact with my advisor? Yes, same idea kind of as the double major. Your academic advisor will kind of be able to speak more upon what minors might be best and then how you should kind of think about registering for your coursework in the future.
Something else to note on that point, if you're looking at a double major or a minor, as Carly said, this is something you're going to communicate with your academic advisor, but it's also something you can keep in mind when you're filling out the orientation questionnaire because it does ask for different areas of academic interest. So this is something you can kind of highlight if there's this particular subject that you are interested in that isn't necessarily directly related to your major choice.
So I see a question asking about social security numbers. You are able to register or obtain a social security number, I believe, once you're in the US and once you have your visa. This is something that the International Students and Scholars Office will be able to walk you through more. I do not believe you're able to kind of obtain one of those prior to receiving your visa, but they would be able to kind of speak more to that, as well as talking about, I think, driver's license or, different country IDs that might be necessary for loans or scholarships.
Something else to keep in mind just about what Carly is saying is that if you aren't familiar with the Social Security number, that is an identification number that we do get here in the United States for US citizens or permanent residents. So that is something that does qualify you for FAFSA in most cases, but the Social Security number that you would be getting as a temporary student here on your F1 student visa, that does not qualify you for FAFSA. That only qualifies you to be able to work a part-time job here in the US as in accordance with your F1 student visa. So just keeping that in mind, when Carly says you are getting a Social Security number, it doesn't mean you're getting US citizenship. It is a very specific type of temporary Social Security number. So what is the earliest possible date to move into on-campus housing and the residence hall? So again, as we've mentioned, throughout the summer, you're going to be getting a lot of very important emails from miscellaneous offices throughout the university. One of those is housing. This is something that they're going to communicate your housing assignment, your roommate assignment, early move-in, late move-in, everything like that. That is something that they're going to communicate with you directly. So once that is set, you will get it in an email. We promise. It just hasn't been set quite yet. So please be patient. Typically, early move-in will take place about a week or so prior to the start of term, which does begin on September 8th this year. Well, thank you guys for joining us this morning. It has been a lot of fun getting to talk to all of you. Again, we're very excited to see so many familiar names today, and we look forward to welcoming you all to campus as soon as possible. So just make sure that you are paying close attention to your next steps on your student applicant dashboard and submitting your I-20 documents if you have not done so already. But again, thank you guys for joining us. It's been a pleasure, and have a great rest of your day.
Bye, everyone.